Welcome back to the Blue Dog Whisperer. I have a very special guest, yet another person who's running for Congress in New York's first congressional district, Lukas Ventouras. Good to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Before we start, I think we should acknowledge the 24th anniversary of the horrible events of September 11th, and of course the recent tragedy yesterday with Charlie Kirk. Political podcasts, political violence, terrorism, obviously have no place in the United States. Um, so I think that you agree with me on that, especially as someone from New York. So your
Right.
district is Suffolk County, New York, which is the eastern end of Long Island, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So we're to your point, 9/11 is always a very significant time around here. I mean, I was 6 months old when 9/11 happened, so I don't have maybe a physical remembrance of it, but you don't grow up on Long Island and probably, Westchester County and all the city, areas without 9/11 having a really strong impact on you. I mean, you know, I remember my elementary school had the names of the people who died that like around basically the where the ceiling meets the wall on my elementary school. And this was, I enrolled in elementary school not even 5 years after it happened. So it was still very fresh. So I remember being from New York, that tragedy and the heroism of everyone involved was such a formative part of how we grew up, and it made us very proud to be New Yorkers and Americans. And that was a very patriotic time to grow up as well. So I think that was definitely very impactful for all of us.
Without a doubt. I was four when
Yeah.
9/11 happened, so
Okay.
I remember a little bit of the day. I didn't know what was going on at the time,
Right.
but I grew up. You and I both grew up with the War on Terror, and I mean, there were people, actually, technically yourself, who probably don't remember any time before we were at war for 20 years.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, so I
No.
mean,
One of my first memories is actually I picked up a newspaper at my grandfather's house. And it was like it was something about the Iraq War and all the like allied participants. And I'm of Greek heritage, and at the time, you don't have a really nuanced opinion when you're however old I was, probably 5. So I'm like, we're of Greek heritage. So I'm like, Dad, is Greece involved in this? Like, are they on the good side? But that's how you start your life, right? You start your life in this very like rah rah America, we're getting the bad guys, and like that's your jumping off point of life and politics and everything. So to your point, for both of us, there's not a lot of a recollection of time before this war on terror and this fear of just terrorism and looking over our shoulders, so to speak, especially during the aughts, the early 2000s.
very true. And I'm from New Jersey, and I
Right.
mean, I don't know this for a fact, but I believe that actually most of the 9/11 victims, if they were not from New York City, were from Monmouth County, New Jersey.
Yeah, yeah,
Which
absolutely.
actually, I've been to Suffolk County. I've been there a few times. Actually, I think Monmouth County and Suffolk County, I don't know if you've been to this state very
Yeah.
often.
Oh,
There,
very, very,
there,
very many times.
there are I don't there are some stark similarities between these two areas, I would say.
I think Jersey and Long Island are pretty simpatico, like as far as things go. I mean, I know there's like a beef, there's a rivalry, like Jersey doesn't want to be from New York and vice versa. But I mean, I have so many friends from Jersey. I know I've been to Jersey so many times. They're, we are the same type of like mid-Atlantic, like just like people. So yeah, absolutely. Monmouth, I know so many people from Monmouth County. It's like they're like one and the same.
Yes, well, you're completely right about that. And I've always said that at New York Penn Station, the Long Island Railroad side has the better restaurants, the better shops than the New Jersey Transit side. But that's I don't know how much you're going to be able to do about New Jersey Transit, especially if you represent
No,
your district. I mean, you're probably not going to want to help New Jersey Transit. That's
no,
something.
I mean, so I mean, I like, yeah, but all jokes aside, no, because I lived in Manhattan for 3.5 years. I went to college at NYU. So I lived in the city, and I, would, I was kind of a nomad in undergrad with like my friends. We were kind of just everywhere all the time, never really staying in the East Village. So I like to travel. So I was taking the train to Jersey. I was taking the Metro North. I was doing all this, and does New York have the best transit? Yes. It's a horrifically low bar though. Like it's just you know what I mean? And so if fixing the path, and also fixing the lure, as they say, and also fixing everything MTA, included, I see that as a win because also there's such a there's a multifaceted reason behind this, but there's such a drain of people leaving New York and leaving Manhattan and Long Island and that Jersey area and moving to greener pastures, either because things are too expensive or what have you, right? And so I think increasing the accessibility that people have to good public transportation that can take them to work faster, you know, they can be work on time, they can get there safer, the stations are clean and nice and new and all these things. Like that is some of the things that are going to help, you know, kind of clot, the blood of people just leaving and leaving and leaving. Because New York, Jersey, Long Island, we all have this kind of like, this is our area, the tri-state area. Like we're very proud to be from it. I don't know many people who, you can grow up ragging on being from Long Island or being from Jersey, as many of us have. But at the end of the day, we're really happy and we love being where we're from. And so for a lot of us, it's like we want to, maybe raise a family out here, or maybe we want to live in the city for a bit after college or while we're working. And we want to make sure that we have the ability to live in, an easy life, a safe life, have the city provide for us because, the city, the state, because we pay them so much, you know what I mean, in taxes. And I think, and I think, I think it's very important to me because like I said, I want to keep people in New York. I'm not one of those people that's like, I don't like transplants. People can't move here. Like I love that New York and Jersey City and Hoboken, all these places by extension are like places that people come because they want to be just around like the magic of like New York and just like the Jersey area. You know what I mean? And people still come. And so I think, but it's an increasingly out of like touch kind of group of people where it's like the city's becoming so unaffordable. Long Island's becoming so unaffordable. And people that are from there are moving out. They're being replaced by people who can't afford it. But it's like, at the same time, it's like you don't want to see so many people leaving Long Island, leaving North Jersey, leaving the city. So I think, anything I could do to help Jersey is kind of the same to me as like helping Long Island, definitely.
Well, that's appreciated by me, and I want so your district. It's the eastern end of Long Island.
Yeah,
I'm sure a lot of misconceptions from people who have not been out there about your
yeah,
district. The Hamptons, wealthy people, but there are a lot of working class towns too. There's
yeah.
Riverhead. Are you from Huntington?
So I'm from East Northport
Okay.
originally. And that's where I live in Northport now. I live in an apartment in Northport, but I'm originally from East Northport. That's where I was. I moved there when I was 3, and that's where I grew up. But yeah, that Huntington area, you could say.
So tell me about your district and what your
Sure.
priorities will be when you get to Congress.
So I'll first start with your earlier point, which was like sort of the misconceptions about the district, and that'll help me tell you a bit about the district as well. I think there's a misconception about Long Island, generally speaking, particularly from people who aren't from the tri-state area, as it's like everybody there is filthy rich. It's like the Great Gatsby every day. And it's not like that at all. I'm from East Northport, which is the working class half of Northport, East Northport, and was it still middle class? Yes, absolutely. But there's pockets like that everywhere. You have Brentwood and you have Riverhead and you have, Gordon Heights and you have places in Brookhaven that are absolutely, to your point, working class communities. And I think people think it's like really rich out here. Everyone's rich. It's like the Hamptons, and that it's like some sort of like MAGA district. I've heard that so much. And that really irks me because I mean it would irk me. I'm not a labels person. That's something that I'm very open about. I don't label myself. I don't label my politics. I don't like to put other people in a box either necessarily. So when like we're characterized like a MAGA district, I'm like, no, first of all, Democrats, I'm pretty sure outregister Republicans in the district, or at very least in the county of Suffolk. And it's not like this MAGA place. It's just a place that's voted Republican more recently because the people have put their trust behind the Republican candidates. That's how I see it. I don't like this like finger pointing and blaming and blah blah blah. Is it a place where Trump has a lot of support? Absolutely. But he has lots of support. You have some of his strongest supporters live in places like Manhattan, Los Angeles. So to me, I don't like this like we're gonna minimize everything to labels and this and that. Like I think that Suffolk is such a nuanced place. And so to your point, it's a very it's a place with pockets of wealth. It's also very working class. It's a place with diversity of political thought, religious affiliation, um, race, ethnicity, what have you. Like to me, I feel like Suffolk is very much like a microcosm of the country, because we have rural areas out east. We have our more urbanized areas, and we have the suburbs, which pretty much dots like every other place. And I think that there are so many different kinds of people out here with so many different kinds of lived experiences who contribute to the fabric. And it's not like, minimizing everyone out here is like, well, they're voting for Lolota and they voted for Zeldin, so they must be these like MAGA red hat wearers. And like, they exist, but that's not my experience of Suffolk County. My experience of Suffolk County is people who have this like blue collar attitude and chip on their shoulder, who just want to make sure that when they pay money to the government, that the government's taking care of them and that they're not, being given the runaround, basically, by their elected officials. It's a very proud place. It's a place with a lot of immigrant history. Like I said, it's a heavily unionized place. And, you know, I think it's very misunderstood. And I think actually the reason that Lolota wins is that he plays into these working class, like everyman sensibilities, where we have tried too often to like over intellectualize everything. And that's not, and I think sometimes people take that the wrong way and they're like, what do you mean? Like, voters are very smart. Absolutely, voters are very smart, but they also want to just hear you be a regular person. And they don't want to hear you be fanciful and educational. Like the days of these educational politicians and people just blindly putting their trust in like the very educated and so on and so forth, you have a much higher barrier of entry, especially as a Democrat, to like enter and gain people's trust. And it can't necessarily just be that, I went to NYU and I have a law degree, right? For myself, right? That's not the only thing that I want people to know about me. I want people to know about me that I'm a fighter. I get in the mud, and I'm just a working class focused person. So to your point, what are my what are my priorities, right? Lucas wins January 3rd, 2027, right? What is he doing? What is he introducing? If I win, almost certainly we've taken the house back. So if I win and somehow we don't take the house back, that is
You did something really, really right. And
yes,
you will be the blueprint for Democrats going forward
yes,
into 2028.
but I'm not that selfish and I don't want that to be the case, right? So, no, so like let's say I win, it's most likely we take back the house. Um, I I think it's unfortunate that Trump's going to be in office, so anything we pass not getting enacted, right? Um, but I think there's a lot of strength behind two things. Two is pushing bills through and using that as a platform to message from and say, when Democrat X takes the oath of office in 2029, this is what we're pushing forward day one, right? That's one important thing too. But I think the another important thing and something that I've seen that has sort of evolved into my like, what are you going to do, is because I've seen this or lack of it, is like Democrats really taking advantage of every single media space that they can, and when they're in these spaces, not wasting their time talking about things that maybe aren't important. Like I've had disagreements with people in Suffolk because I'm like, I want to attack Republicans for all the stuff that they're doing wrong, because a lot of people don't have the privilege to be so tapped into all the politics and all the happenings. Like, some people are single parents, or some people have many kids, or some people work several jobs. And I think we don't appreciate enough how much of a privilege it is to be uber informed. And I think as a political candidate, as yourself who does political media, right? It's important for us, if we have, an ideology or something that we want to advance, an agenda, it's important for us to say, these people are standing in our way. This is how I'm going to illustrate it. And I think that's something that when we get in the media, we don't do enough. And I don't think it's like a talent problem necessarily. I mean, I see myself smack in like the middle of like the ideological framework, in the sense that like I don't label myself because I want to have the option to have a diverse viewpoint on things and not be pigeonholed. And you know what I mean? Like I'm not this, I'm not that. But you have people in the party who, they say they're like third way Democrats, right? Or you have these progressive Democrats, or this, that, the other, right? I'm not necessarily focused on what is my label, who is my like who are like my Twitter stands that are going to be caring about. I don't care about any of that. I want to legislate and I want to get there and I want to get a message across. And no matter what kind of Democrat you are, we have talented Democrats who can do that, who can go into the media and who can, Scott, I know you're more of like a blue dog, right? But you have people from the Pete Buttigieg's, right? Who I don't know how you feel about him, not really the point, to the AOCs who just functionally speaking, good in front of the camera, good orators, really good at like if you give them something they can attack. But the thing is, there's only like handful, Jasmine Crockett, some of these people that are doing it. We need more. We need more people also that are doing it maybe in their own like democratic bent, right? Of what they believe in. So to show people this is a big tent party, you can find a home here and we're all going to work together. Like I know it's so cliche in 2025. It's like we're going to work together, after all the division and the vitriol that like both parties and left and right have for each other. But if you don't operate on a basis of I want to get shit done and I don't really care who I have to work with to do it, that's important. But at the same time, you have to illustrate these are the people that don't want to get stuff done so that, you vote for me, not, you know, Republican X in whatever district. So I think something that I want to see myself do and other Democrats do is just really be aggressive in the media and go on the offensive. And we don't have to do what a lot of Republicans do, which is like make stuff up, in my experience. We have a lot of truth, like in our corner. We have the truth about Doge. We have the truth about the big crap bill, right? We have all of this information that's just facts, right? And our facts can be louder than their lies, but we have to like actually speak them into existence, right? I don't think that sending like a strongly worded letter to the Trump administration, like that doesn't have a lot of sway with Trump, who, Stephen Miller probably got the letter, laughed, put it in the shredder, and then went back to whatever he was doing, right? I just want to see more Democrats realize that we're in a different era and we don't have to abandon who we are and what we believe in as like the working class, like center left party, if you want to say. Like we don't have to abandon that. But what we do have to do is remold to the new framework of politics that we're living in because it's not the 90s and we can't keep running politics and politicians who are acting like it is the 90s. And I think, more people who are social media savvy, more people who are unafraid to just, tell the truth. And like I said, that's not necessarily like an ideological thing because I really like that the party is a big tent. I think sometimes it can be problematic in that you want to get a bill passed and right like the demons of the Biden administration, who Biden in my opinion is a very like standard issue Democrat, right? And you had people, I guess, to his right in the party, the senators that were like stopping what he wanted to do, right? And so those were like the villains, right? The cinemas and the mansions, right? So sometimes having a big tent is messy, right? But we still got stuff passed. We needed to do more, in my opinion, but we still got stuff passed. So we're still able to deliver. Whereas, in my experience, like Republicans aren't really delivering solution necessarily. Like they're creating problems to me. So for me, Democrats, no matter who's been president, they've gotten stuff done. I think we need to get more stuff done. And so for me, we need to push the envelope on like introducing legislation and just go on the offensive and make sure that by 2028, Republicans are so toxic that we win and we win big and we win a big mandate so that we can retake the Senate and have large, numbers. And I think that any of us who win in 26, we need to be really prepping for 28 as well.
There's no argument with that, but I think that's something that a lot of voters, especially undecided voters, would want to know. And I'm not an undecided
Hmm.
voter. I will
Sure.
pretty much be voting Democrat
Right.
for the next. I mean, unless the party does something incredibly stupid, I don't see how I'm voting Republican. But
Right.
I think a lot of people, including myself, want to know, is there any way if our party takes back the House of Representatives and maybe even the Senate, who knows, in the midterms, is there any way we could maybe backtrack some of the Medicaid cuts, the Medicare cuts, because but in some capacity, because the Republicans are going to know that when those Medicaid and Medicare cuts are implemented, their ass is on the line.
Right.
And if
Right.
you can find a way to convince them to maybe slow down the damage, because unfortunately, some of it is inevitable. Do you think
Yep.
that's a possibility if you and your party take back the House and maybe the Senate?
So I'm genuinely an optimistic person by nature. That's why I'm running. I wouldn't run and do all this if I didn't think like I can be one of the bricks that leads to like change, right? One of the pieces. So I don't know. I think to answer your question would almost entail us doing what I said in the last answer, like on a turbocharged basis. Like we get in, let's say we win back the House. We introduce legislation to overturn some of these cuts because these cuts will be implemented in 27 after the midterms, obviously, as we know. So the majority of things will still happen, but a lot of these cuts will obviously happen after the midterms, which they've done strategically. So a lot of it will be, if we still end up being able to retake the House, we have to put so much pressure on Republicans that it becomes untenable for them to vote against vote against clawing back this funding for Medicaid, um, or the undoing of clawing back the funding, rather. And like that's the thing that I really don't think we've done enough of. I think that people are already outraged at everything that's gone on that they see as untenable, illegal, counter to. I mean, it's really insane how united across a political spectrum so many people are, from conservative economists to like your like hippie liberals that like, oh my God, this guy's tanking the dollar. What's going on with the tariffs? Like across the spectrum, a lot of us are realizing this stuff is bad. And that's really without, in my opinion, Democratic politicians putting their foot and putting the pedal to the metal to the fullest extent that they can. Like we're not going 60 miles an hour, we're going 10, in my opinion. And the reason we're only going 10 is because we have pockets of politicians that are like coming out and fighting, but we don't, it seems, have a cohesive strategy as Democrats, like at the top of the party that are saying, this is our fight back method. This is our strategy. This is what we're going to do. We're going to tactically, deploy this information during these committee hearings, and we're going to, you're going to be on every gosh damn like podcast that you can think of, and you're going to be on every manosphere podcast, and you're going to be on every bro podcast, and you're going to be on every cooking podcast, and every I don't give a fuck what you're on podcast, like literally.
This
But
is
we
one
don't
of those.
have that. Yes, no, I understand that, and that's why I'm just like, you know what I mean, and like
Yeah.
that is why that is why Trump and the Republicans are underwater polling wise. What so many people aren't talking about, okay, look at the Democratic Party. Why are the Democrats still just as underwater? And the thing is that people aren't feeling the impact of us fighting against it. That's a lot of it. And they feel like, why they voted for Trump in the first place is that there was a lot of discontent with the current, with the Biden administration and the Kamala campaign. We can get into that and the nuances of that, but I think we really need to have a comprehensive strategy. So one of the things also is if I get in there, we need to pressure leadership. We really do. And pressure leadership to do the things like you asked. Like this is an untenable situation for Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP, all these benefits to just be cut. Just cut. All these people losing their health care, all the rural hospitals and clinics and all these places that are going to close. We can't afford to sit on our asses until the earliest 2029 to then try and get some legislation passed and then have infighting and then it's 2030 by the time. No, 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 we need to start immediately once Hakeem has the gavel, right, or once whoever it is the Senate majority leader, right. And that we don't have that now is concerning. That would enable, like, that kind of strategy would enable us to take back the House, which would then enable us to do what you're saying, which is every breath possible out of our mouths has to be, they're taking your healthcare, they're taking your healthcare, they're taking your healthcare, they're making life more expensive. Look what he's doing to the dollar. I was just in Europe for a bit. Whoa, like, wow, the way the dollar has tanked. Like yeah, I have a lot of family over there, so I was visiting them for Christmas pre-Trump, and I visited them in August during Trump. My purchasing power is much different now, abroad, and that just shows what our influence is. That people are selling U.S. bond, the countries are selling our our bonds, and all this is happening it's not good for anyone. It's not good for the tippy top person unless they buy everything up, which is a different story. And it's definitely not good for the people at the bottom, right? Which is most of us. So, um, you know, we need to see like a five alarm fire strategy because I mean the Republicans will enact a five alarm fire strategy against us from, in my opinion, stuff that they just make up, a lot of the times, or stuff that they really embellish the nature of. And for us, it's like, where is our urgency? Where is our understanding that so many tenets of our democracy are being corroded? Like I studied the Constitution. It's very concerning to me, all the things that are happening, the judges that are being ignored, everything that's going on. It's like I am very heartened by people who are like genuine conservatives, not because I ideologically agree with them, because they're like, this isn't conservative. This is not like for me, following the Constitution for those people, right? These conservatives that I know, they're like following the Constitution is the most conservative, like principled thing you can do. Blowing it up and not listening to it is very just I don't know what it is, right? So across the spectrum, we all just need to say, this is what they're doing. This is what they're doing. This is what they're doing. And that I find that very important.
Right. So you're 24, you'll be 25
Yeah.
next year, and then you'll be eligible to be in Congress.
Yes.
So if you
Yes.
are elected, I believe, you will be the youngest member of the House.
I believe so. Yeah. I'm not sure everyone who's running, but I think one of at least.
Okay. Have you met with Hakeem Jeffries?
No, I have not met with Hakeem Jeffries. I talked to a couple people in and around the party,
Mhm.
locally as well. I know that they I know that they were not looking to back the seat after the John Avalon experiment. I know that they were looking at like recruiting someone or someone's coming in the race. There's a primary, so I'm not quite sure how he jumped in the race, but I know um, that there's someone who has like more, I guess you could say, like Suffolk institutional support. Um, and but I, I've spoken to some of the people around the party, but it's not like I don't think they're super invested in this race at this time, which is regrettable, because I think it's a I think it's a winnable seat. But I think sometimes conventional wisdom, in politics can lead you astray, right? Conventional wisdom, like, oh, they've been winning the seat since 2014, so we're just going to give up on it, even though it's only like an R+3 or 4 district. I think that's regrettable, but obviously everyone makes their decisions, and I would absolutely love to speak with him. My door's always open, my phone's always open, and I suspect that his is too. I just think that he has different priorities at the moment, I guess,
So do you think you're
which is
gonna?
not a bad thing. Which is not a bad thing.
Yeah. Do you think so do you have any primary challengers right now, or are you the?
Yes, so that's what I was saying. So there is a primary. Someone hopped into the race in the last month, I would say. But obviously I've been running since last fall. So since the election ended, I obviously knowing my starting off point, like the amount of momentum I would need to, and the amount of time it would take to build that momentum, I started early. People have more institutional support or money that then they are able to start a lot later, which is great. But so now it's two of us. I suspect it'll just be the two of us. And looking forward to like the sport of it. Obviously, we've met, we've promised to be civil, and whoever wins will get the full-throated backing of the other, which I think is really important, to have unity in the party. So yeah, that's where it's at.
How did you decide to run for Congress at this very young age?
You know, I so I've worked on campaigns. I've worked in a congressional office. I've worked for, I don't know if you know what Mediaite is, the website. I've worked for them. Um, I've worked in civil rights law. So I have, and I've also done organizing. So I have a good background, like, in some of these things that has taken me around the bend, kind of. But it was never something that I was like, I want to run for Congress. I dream of being a member of Congress. I always like was of the mind that like politics and politicians were all kind of gross. Like I had that very American, like kind of like as much as I've always loved history and politics, I still always had that like every politician is still kind of a douche thing. Like I always just thought that growing up. So I was never like, I'm gonna get into politics. But basically what happened was 2020 primary came around. I found the whole ordeal just fascinating, um, and kind of drew me back in. And then January 6th happened, and just like the whole stop the steal. And I just was like, this can't be happening here, right? Like, there's no way. And it just kind of it radicalized me in the sense of like I suddenly became someone who wanted to run for office because I was like, this is just untenable. And then I started looking into it. I had been working on some campaigns. I was like, and we keep losing out here. And we keep doing the same thing, running the same like strategy campaign time after time after time after time. And it's not working. And I've worked on some of these campaigns and I'm like, it's not working. Like, I'm old enough. I think I'm capable enough. I'm smart enough. I know that I'm very knowledgeable and I know that people won't outwork me. I always do my homework. Like I grew up with a mother that was a clinical psychologist. So I always had this like innate, like I want to help people. And it kind of drove me. I wanted to do immigration law. I'm doing civil rights law now. So I've always had this like justice focus, like not in the cliche sense though, like genuinely, like I want to help people. The plight of like the working class and like the lower class, like it genuinely just like chokes me up. Like I hate it. And I want to see people prosper. And so for me, it was like my discontent with the way the party is currently running in Suffolk and like how we just keep getting blown out. Like we should not be getting blown out this bad. There's a crap ton of Democrats in Suffolk. Like there's no a lot of them are sitting home. If you look at like the statistics and you look at the voting data, like we're having a genuine turnout problem. Plus, like I see the suffering across the country. I see how many people live close to the poverty line, especially in Suffolk, and I'm like, it's not fair. Everyone deserves a chance. Everyone deserves for their government to provide them with with an easy life, or at the very least, provide them with things that help improve their lives, right? And to me is that's why you pay taxes. You pay taxes to a government which, some operational costs, right? And then everything else is like, okay, I'll fix your road. Your school will be good, right? That is the social contract we should have with the United States government. And I think so often, especially you see on Long Island, it's dotted with schools that are underfunded because of like the laws and the loopholes and everything. And it's very unfair. And for me, I just saw all of this at once and I thought, I'm the type of person that's like, if it's not being done right, I'll just do it. You know what I mean? Like, when everyone's like trying to, who's going to pay the bill? And no one's like, everyone's hedging. I'm like, screw it. I'll just do it. Like, I'm one of those people that's like, you know what? I'll just do it. Right. Because for me, the results are so important. Seeing people's lives materially improved, it's so important. And it feels at the same time, though, so cliche to say it because that mindset is so often co-opted by just careerists, right? That just want to get into politics. They want the title, they want the office in DC, they want the everything, right? And I think especially in Suffolk, there's so many people that are turned off of the process. They're cynical. And some for a lot of it is for good reason. And they just think politics doesn't work for me. So I won't be getting off my butt to vote because why should I work for politics? And I think that's honestly an understandable conclusion, especially for the amount of, like you said, working class folks that are out here in Suffolk. But it's up to someone to show people, no, this is, people died for your right to go and kick someone out of office, to hold a powerful person accountable. If you're not exercising that right, it's a tragedy. And we need to prove to people that, like, there actually are competent, good faith people in the process that want to help them. Sometimes they're not the most funded or the flashiest of candidates. Oftentimes they're not. You know what I mean? Oftentimes they're the hard workers, the ones who just grind it out, who, they work on a budget where, I'm not saying that's me necessarily. I've raised a good amount of money, but, especially the way we started off, right? It was just a grind every day, going places, showing up at first without any literature. Then we had the money for literature. Then we had the money for other things, right? And, we need to make sure that people understand that these candidates are the people we should be elevating. Right. And, for me, why I wanted to run was I thought people needed better representation. And I genuinely thought if no one else is going to do it well, I think I'm the best person for the job.
So it seems like a very common theme, and we only have a few minutes left, but it seems like a
Yeah.
very common theme for your campaign is the working class. Now, I've been in there quite a
Yeah.
few times. Riverhead, I know, is a working class town. I think it's pretty conservative. Am I right?
Yeah, I would say for the most part, but it's not necessarily entirely, right?
Right. So, how would you, as a Democrat, explain to some of those voters out there to trust you? Because I'm sure some of them have that mentality that you and I were talking about. about why
Right.
Bob. What would you
Right,
change about?
exactly. And I think there's an added layer to it of just like the polarization where they're like, I'm a Republican or I'm just conservative. That's my identity, right? But that's my whole theory behind I don't label myself, man. Like I really don't. Like I really respect all people's opinions as long as they are not like derogatory or violent, right? So I think that everyone comes to their conclusions in life based on their lived experiences. And for me, I would tell these people, I'm not here because I'm on some like because a lot of these people they might say, "Oh, you're like a leftist or something," right? I don't want to vote for someone who's gonna, bring in like this is some of the rhetoric that we're dealing with, right? And I would just tell them like, don't look at me as a person of an ideology. Look at me as a vessel for progress. And I would say, I have a good personal track record of like having a lot of conservative friends and always seeming to like at least find common ground. And now that's very different when you're running and you're asking people to vote for you and they think like all Democrats suck and I never want to put you in office, even if I think you're a nice guy. It's very different, right? But I would just tell these people, listen, I care about unions. I care about, lowering the cost of eggs and diapers and milk and gas and making sure that, you know what, actually you can take a vacation every year because your wages are keeping up with inflation. And we're actually doing what we can to fight inflation and to raise wages and to empower unions and things like that. And I think a lot of times it will be like, oh, well, that's a very leftist platform. And I'm like, no, that's just where discourse has gotten us, where we're thinking of a person who wants to implement material change, which like 70% of people want to have like, if I have a kid, hey, give me 2 months like off so I can raise this kid so the kid and I can have a bond and so I'm not rushed back to work and someone else is raising my kid, right? 80, 90% of the country agrees with that. Conservative, liberal, in between, up, down, right, left. So, you just have to connect with people that I'm not demonizing you because you're a conservative. I hate that. So many Democrats do it. I see Democrats in Suffolk do it. I see Democrats in DC do it. They're denigrating the MAGA base. And I'm like, unless this is an anti-Semite, an Islamophobe, a homophobe, someone who is a bigot to their core, unless they're like that, they're most likely a person who feels so lost. They may have voted for Obama. They may have voted for Gore. Who knows? Our politics has changed so much. That's a person in there that might be struggling or might be looking for something. Instead of demonizing them because they voted for Trump, they're not the problem. They're not the ones signing the bills. Yes, they may have empowered this person, but this person was only empowered because of the failures of the established parties before, the Republicans and the Democrats. So when you connect with someone, you say, hey, I know the failures of the established parties are the reasons that I'm running. When you connect with a person on that, there's so much trust that can be fostered there. But I think Democrats are really afraid to say, we have generations of politicians that effed up. Like, we don't want to throw them under the bus almost. It's like these people are either dead, retired, or don't care. You know what I mean? Because they're not in the public life anymore. And we need to say, we've made mistakes. We're going to rectify it. And, we're the guys that you should trust, even though we're Democrats and you're, a cultural, maybe like out here, it's like a Catholic conservative, right? Doesn't matter. I want the same stuff as you for the most part.
All right. Well, we got to go. Just before we wrap up, do you have a website
Mhm.
or a social media?
Yeah. So I am actually getting like a brand new website. So probably by the time this comes out, it'll be up. So if you go to www.lukasfor Congress, lucasforcongress.com, you'll be able to find my Act Blue if you want to donate. You'll be able to find all my social media pages and all that good stuff. So if you go to my website, it's not up right this second, but in the next week it'll be up. So if you go there, you'll be able to find everything.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good night.